Crafty friends, it's Jess from jesscrafts.com, and today I'm here with a card for the Coffee Lovers Blog Hop. It is the Summer Blog Hop, and it is running from Friday, June 17th to Friday, June 24th. There are a lot of awesome, amazing sponsors, including Newton's Nook Designs, and I believe Create a Smile Stamps is one of the sponsors. But you can certainly head over to coffeelovingpapercrafters.com and check out the long list of sponsors and see what kind of prizes might be up for grabs, because all you have to do is make a card with a summer and coffee theme and enter it into the link up. And other drinks kind of working with it too, the tea, hot chocolate, that sort of thing. But all started as a coffee loving group. And so I'm going to use this Lots of Mugs stencil from Create a Smile Stamps. I'm going to be using quite a few different Create a Smile Stamps products. And the distress ink I am using is the Cracked Pistachio. I have taped the stencil to my grid mat, but also taped the paper to my grid mat as well, because I don't want it to shift around, as this is a pretty delicate stencil. And I want to create some really soft edges, and the way that I find it easiest to do that is to do more of a dabbing motion and less of a rubbing motion. In the areas that I want it to be really dark, like in the center, I do sort of a dab and twist to get more ink on there. But as I want it to fade out in the edges, I'm finding that the best thing to do is just sort of dab the ink blending tool on top of the paper, rather than trying to sort of blend it in with that sort of twirling, swirling motion that you might typically think of using to apply distress ink. And also try not to get too much ink onto my blender so that it continues to have that soft look. The nice thing about taping the stencil down is you can pull it up, check to see how it's coming out, and then place it back down and keep going if you need to. So that's why I generally suggest just maybe the 1 or 2 pieces of tape, rather than taping it down too much and you won't be able to get it off again. So I'm also using this stamp set from Create a Smile called Lovely Critters, and I will probably be entering this card into the Create a Smile Favorites Challenge as well, because the Lovely Critters are my favorite Create a Smile stamp set. It's really hard to choose one, but if I had to, it would certainly be that, because the critters are just so cute with their little hearts all over them. And I'm going to stamp a little coffee cup from the Coffee First stamp set right into his hand. And I'm going to stamp the pig right onto my card base as well, because when I fussy cut the pig, he's going to lose his tail. And so I want the tail to still be there, so I'm just going to place that image again onto the card base. I'm going to be doing some Copic coloring, so I'm using the My Favorite Things Black Licorice Hybrid ink, as that's my current favorite for use with Copics. I think it gives a nice dark impression. So I'll put the stenciled background off to the side for my coloring, but first I wanted to add a sentiment. And I looked at the Create a Smile stamp set, but I recently got this one from the Greeting Farm, which I think has some really fun coffee sentiments, and so I'm going to actually be using one from that stamp set instead. Definitely a lot of different stamp sets going on in this particular card. I am using VersaFine Onyx Black ink for the sentiment, because I find that it stamps really dark black and gives you good fine detail. I almost never mess up my stamping when I use the VersaFine, and so I decided to just stamp right down with that, and I won't be doing any more Copic coloring. When I do my Copic coloring, a lot of times I use Sandy Allnock's hex chart as a reference to get my colors, and so I'll certainly leave a link to that as well as the different products in the video description below, in case you're looking to know what any of the stamp sets were. But I find it really helpful to see how the colors in my collection will blend. Just because you don't have 2 colors right next to each other in the color naming system doesn't mean you don't have 2 colors that will blend together. You can experiment a lot with your blending with the hex chart, as it shows a lot of different options that are out there. But I've also been taking Sandy Allnock's Copic Jumpstart class, and I have found that very helpful as well. It's helped me to learn about giving texture to animals, combining some colors in unique ways, working with what I have, and just overall pretty valuable and giving me a little bit more confidence with my coloring, which is nice, because sometimes you see all the different people's great coloring and you just kind of think, oh, I'm never going to be able to color like them. However, with some instruction and some of the great classes that are out there, I think you can certainly learn. And I'm a big fan of taking classes, especially directly from paper crafters, to help support them. So that's again the Sandy Allnutt Copic Jumpstart. And what I'm doing here is using the R11 and R12 to create a pretty simple blend. I basically just want him to have a little bit of depth to him, and I'm doing that by creating a darker shadow on each side of him, so there's a sort of highlight down the middle, and it gives him a little bit feeling of like some rounded dimension. Nothing too complicated, just something so that he has a little bit of interest to him. And as mentioned before, I'll be fussy cutting him, so I'm just going and coloring right outside the lines with no worries, and adding that darker pink to his feet and his nose. Once I had that finished, I wanted to pull in the teal color on the coffee cup, so I just picked a Copic marker that I thought went well with the cracked pistachio. It turned out to be a little bit more blue than I would have liked, but it was close enough. And so then I wanted to add a little bit of interest around the edges. A lot of times I will just matte my card base or my design onto like some colored cardstock and then onto the card. However, I recently picked up these dies from Gina, I believe it's Gina Marie Designs, so Gina Marie Dies. Again, I'll leave a link. And their dies are really, really reasonably priced, and a lot of times those dies that cover the whole card front are very expensive. However, I have this one that cuts a scalloped frame. And it cuts two different scallop frames, and I think it was about $10, and it gives a nice little finishing edge. It's not the exact size of an A2 card, however, though. It's a little bit smaller, so you have to adjust your card size to it. But basically, I covered the edges of a piece of cardstock in the Abandoned Coral Distress ink, which coordinated well with the little pig. And then I die cut the frame, and now I'm going around with a Memento Tuxedo Black marker and just getting the edges of this little critter, because I do want them to look really finished, since I did do some fussy cutting there. And that's a way, if you're not so great at fussy cutting, a lot of times that black marker can make everything all right and just kind of finish up the little edges where you might have cut things off slightly different than you wanted to. I put some adhesive all around the edges. And if you feel less confident in your ability to sort of measure things, you could always lay the frame down and then trim behind it, so that you're definitely making sure that you've left enough of the room around your image, and also to help with placement. However, I just measured slightly smaller, and I find it a little bit easier to take the back panel to it, so that way the edges don't stick until I've put down the whole thing and lined it up nicely. And once I have that finished, I'm going to put that on a card base, and that will be it for my card today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you are interested in more crafting tutorials, be sure to subscribe to my channel. Again, I'd love to see everybody participating in the Summer Coffee Lovers Blog Hop, because there are so many awesome sponsors and prizes, so I'll be sure to leave a link in the video description. Thanks for watching. Bye!